What's going on, guys? Kimchi Cowboy here. Today we're going to be talking about Staccato's 2011, the Staccato P in general, the truth about it, if it is worth your hard-earned money, and if I ever do comparisons, I'll be comparing it to this Gen 5 Glock 17 with a Harrington Arms compensator on it, just so you guys can have a little back and forth. A lot of you all have asked me, is it worth buying a 2011 Staccato? Because it is a hefty amount of money. They also just released the HD, but I'm not going to talk about that since I have no shooting behind that itself. The Staccato P here, as you see, is the steel version, DLC coated barrel and slide, coming up roughly to 10,000 rounds to it. So I think I can give you guys a pretty good idea and review of this handgun, as I've shot plenty of rounds to it. I have not done any matches with it yet. I actually have signed up for my first match end of March, so we'll see how that does. So basically this has been concealed carry as well as a ranged toy. So it's going to be broken up into different chunks. The first one here is going to be build and quality. Like I said before, this is the steel one and DLC coated, so it's built like a freaking tank. It's full frame. You can feel that in the hand. Definitely compared to a Glock. Glock is light, flimsy, almost plasticky. This thing here feels like a work of art. Now, I'm not exaggerating, blowing it out of the water. It's not a Sandhawk or a Pit Viper or anything like that. This thing though just feels different, and anyone who's picked one up has noticed the build quality, and they always say the weight and the feel of it is really nice in their hands. The craftsmanship is really high end, as you would expect for a firearm at this price, and the tolerances are super tight. That goes to show that they just put in the time, the effort, and you know that this handgun, when you get it, is going to be reliable, as well as more than likely not going to fail you. But we will talk about failures here in a little bit, so bear with me. That is the build and quality. They're local here in Texas, so if I ever needed anything, the customer service one is great online via phone or email, but I can also just pop in, drop it off, be like if I need to, and I can get any work done. So you can definitely tell time and effort is put behind this handgun. Next up that we're going to be talking about is ergonomics and comfort. So like I mentioned before, anyone who's held this has realized how well it feels in their hands. I don't have the largest hands. Sometimes I fit between a medium or a large glove, but this grip itself fits my hands really well, and it just feels comfortable. It does. There's some pistols that have a very odd grip angle. This one does not. It just feels natural. My wrists don't feel like it's in any odd position. And just the ergonomics of everything, from the slide release to the safety to the magazine release, the back strap, everything feels great. As you may notice here, I have a Triarch slide release that is extended back. I'm actually going to opt to get rid of it. I'm not a big fan of it. If you do keep the stock one, we'll talk about it a little later though, you will have to use your support hands for reloads. Safety itself, very tactile, very nice and sharp, not crazy resistance, so you're not fighting it, but you definitely know when you engage it and when you disengage it. Backstrap is taped down, we'll talk about the grip in a little bit. Overall, really easy to manipulate, and then slide release, if you have the stock one and you practice with it, you can be incredibly fast. Moving on to performance and accuracy, I think that is definitely where this Staccato shines and outclasses the Glock in a lot of different ways. The trigger being the first thing. The trigger is so smooth. It's a single action trigger and it breaks cleanly around 3.5 pounds. They say 3.5, 4. I don't have a trigger gauge measure, but just from my finger strength, I think maybe it's a 3.5, and it definitely lightens up the more you shoot it. Just like a Glock trigger, the more you shoot it, the better it gets. The reset on it is incredibly short and also tactile, making follow-up shots very quick. Whereas the Glock trigger, you know, it's very crunchy. You don't exactly know when the wall is, and when it breaks, it breaks. And then the reset is a little bit longer and not as defined. So follow-up shots with the Glock, definitely slower. And also shooting this out to distance, because of the trigger, of how great the Staccato trigger is, I can hit targets 100 yards, 80 yards. I hit a target, a redacted D zone target one-handed. The trigger just makes it being able to shoot so much better. Also, the weight of the steel handgun for some reason makes it seem, or maybe it does, but who knows, I haven't really looked side by side on the camera, that the follow-up shots have less recoil. The recoil impulse of the heavier frame and just the heavier pistol overall makes it seem like it shoots flatter. This has nothing on it, no ports, no comp. Whereas the Glock has a compensator, and I feel just because it's a little lighter in weight that it has a little bit more of a recoil impulse than this here. I did order Monsoon Tactical Lucky 7 ports for this, so we will see how that changes it up. But overall, shoots really flat, super fast, really accurate. One thing though that you should note is the black painted mags that you can get from Staccato, they can stick. I have 2 of them that stick in the mag well. When I press the mag release, they don't come out unless with some force. So I would recommend just buying the unpainted aluminum mags instead of the painted black ones. Also, talking about magazines, if you drop a loaded mag more than halfway full, I haven't really counted, and it hits perfectly, a bunch of your rounds are going to pop out. Sometimes it might just be 1. I've had 5 pop out once. So that's just one thing performance-wise, that the magazines, if you load them all the way to the top and you shoot only a couple rounds and then you drop it and it hits perfectly, you might be spilling 20 cents, 25 cents on the ground each time you drop it. Reliability. Once again, this is where the Staccato also really shines. Everyone knows Glocks are super reliable. Those things also run like a freaking tank. People online, people on forums always talk about how you have to keep your Staccato incredibly clean, incredibly lubed, blah, blah, blah. People on the internet are anal. Stay away from the Facebook groups. 95% of those people in there buy Staccato and it's a safe clean. The other 5% actually run it like it's supposed to be. Either they're LEO, they are SWAT, or they do competitive shooting. Besides that, the 95% of them are snowflakes, if you want to call them. I ran this thing so hard. I ran in the rain. I've tossed it empty. This had 0 malfunction since the day I bought it, except for the very first range date. So I guess I kind of was a hypocrite there. This was a display gun, right? So it was on the rack. People could take it off. They could rack the slide as they want. They could press the trigger, blah, blah, blah. So the day I bought it, it was drier than your grandma. I mean, that thing was so dry. Like the slide had a lot of resistance. Anyways, I took it out and I had a couple failure to feeds. Sorry. I took it out and I had a couple failure to ejects. Lubed it up. Since that day, I want to say 9,500 rounds later, I have had 0 issues. I've ran steel cased, I've ran brass, I've ran nickel, I've ran all sorts of different hollow points, and this thing has ran it like a freaking tank. People online say you can't run steel cased ammo. Well, I'm running it and I'm running it just fine. So there you go. So I've rarely cleaned it. Isaac rarely cleans his. I probably go 3 to 4 range trips before I even touch this with lube or anything like that. It's been a year since I've deep cleaned the barrel. All I've done for a whole year has dropped lube on the slide, in the barrel, and underneath the slide. So this thing runs like a freaking tank. The reliability is insane. Don't be super anal about cleaning it. Take it with a grain of salt. Clean your guns if you want to, but don't let that be a stopping point of thinking you have to keep and maintain this thing super clean. Okay, now let's move on and talk about customization and accessories. Just like anything out there, you can customize it as much as you want. You can get different grip textures. This grip right here is extremely abrasive, which is why the tape is around the handle. It's not there for the back strap to disengage the safety. That's no issue at all. It's because when I conceal carry this handgun, it digs the crap out of your stomach and will rub a raw patch. So you can change this grip out, but like anything on a Staccato, it's expensive. I believe they're north of $300 to change out the lower grip. So just be aware of that. If you want to buy magazines for this, they're about $60 to $70 or even more. If you want to buy an optic plate, it's $100. Be careful when you do that though, because the rear screw is rock set or Loctited or some sort of magical sorcery to keep that thing from coming out. I know personally a lot of people on the internet as well as in person, and I have done it myself, is I have stripped the rear screw. It is just like a hot knife and butter. That thing just strips on the first turn, and I didn't even try after that. I dropped it off the Staccato and I got it back within 3 to 4 days. So just be wary when you want to take off the rear optic plate. If you're going to put an optic on, either heat it up or just pray that you will not strip your Allen screw. And it's just like a sports car. You buy a Porsche, everything is going to be expensive, so just be aware of that. Now, I've hyped up the Staccato a lot, and a lot of you probably haven't made it this far and you're like, this guy's a fanboy for Staccatos, but let's go ahead and talk about some cons. So the cons, just to wrap it up, are the grip texture is abrasive, this beaver tail and hammer can dig into your stomach. I could lose a couple pounds and that might solve the issue, but just know if you're sitting down, this can dig into your stomach a little more. Things are expensive for this handgun because it's like a higher end pistol, so just like a higher end car, anything you do will be more expensive for it. And then the optic plate, the rear optic screw being extremely tight. So those are some of the cons. I'm sure there's other people out there that can name a couple more, but those are the cons that I've ran into. Oh, also the mag that sticks when you are trying to release it. That is mainly it for cons. Last but not least, our final thoughts on the Staccato. So I think the Staccato P 2011 is definitely a premium pistol. It has great performance, very good accuracy, and top-notch build quality. Whether you're into competitive shooting, you are just an avid range shooter, you want this for self-defense, or you want this as a duty firearm, I definitely think it excels and will meet your expectations. Would I trust my life with it? Yes, I would. The drop test does not faze me. That's not something I think I'll ever find myself in that situation. I know this thing can go through rain. I know this thing will go and run even if it's not on a daily or monthly maintenance schedule. This thing fires, and it fires any round so far I've put through it. The Glock will do the same for the most part, but something about this just has that better shooting experience. No hate to Glock. I love Glocks. I carry a Glock. Glocks, I would say, are a little bit harder to shoot just because of that trigger and the lighter weight, whereas you pick up this thing and you can run full throttle. So if you're looking to buy a Staccato, I definitely think it's worth it. Should it be the only handgun you own? No, I think you should get a plethora of handguns, and they're all so different. If you can do this really well, you might not be able to do a Glock really well. I feel if you're able to do a Glock pretty well, you'll be able to do a Staccato very well. So that is the truth about Staccato in my eyes. My eyes are a little smaller than the rest of the folks out there, but take everything I said with a grain of salt. Not a competitive shooter. I'm just a hobbyist and enjoys going out to the range, having fun with some guys, and shooting. And of course, freedom. So any comments, questions, anything like that, comment down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.